Acting scene. Yes, he is my husband. But this does not mean that he has the right to control me. He can't ask me, "Where are you going? Where did you come from?" I am an independent person. Ask for his permission before leaving my house. Me ask for his permission? Am I a minor to seek his permission as if he is my guardian? The fact that he's my husband doesn't mean he owns me. I'm not his slave. At the office, the manager, "Why are you late?" The woman, "I am sorry, sir. I had an issue." The manager, "Don't be late again. The work was delayed by your absence." The woman, "Understood." The manager, "Make sure you clock in at 8 sharp tomorrow morning." The woman, "Understood." At her desk, the woman, "The manager was harsh. However, he might be right. His temper was justified. It's for the good of the company. Even if it upsets me, I must put up with it. This is my job, the source of my success and independence. I don't want to depend on anyone. I do not want to depend on anyone." What made her reject? Her husband's kawama, authority, responsibility, and protection, and refuse his interference? While she understands her manager's interference and respects his orders? What makes her easily accept the manager's question when he asks her, "What did you do during working hours?" and stand in front politely to request permission? "May I leave work and return at a later hour?" While she considers asking her husband's permission demeaning, not to mention the institutions and managers who impose upon female employees what to wear and what not to wear. What makes her understand the good of the company and endure the manager's temper, especially if there are no other job opportunities? While, if her husband gets angry, she bristles, defies him, seeks separation, then posts on her account, celebrating divorce. What made her reject the authority of one man, her husband or her father, then accept the authority of other strange men, men with no kawama over her? Whether few or many depending on the job hierarchy, different men who come and go, so there's no guarantee that she won't end up reporting to an untrustworthy and immoral manager. In short, what made her exchange what is better for what is worse? What is the meaning of kawama? Could it be that we men misunderstand kawama so our wives refuse sometimes what is indeed rejected by Sharia, Islamic jurisprudence? Why is there kawama in the first place? Why aren't all family decisions made jointly, with the woman's opinion worth as much as the man's? Isn't absolute gender equality the basis? Is kawama a right based on the man's gender, because he has the Y chromosome, while the female has the X chromosome? What if the husband refuses to support his wife financially or care for her? Would he still have kawama? What if the wife is the breadwinner who supports her husband and family? Doesn't she deserve the right of kawama in this case? What if the wife is a doctor, while the husband isn't even educated? Why would he have kawama in this case? Doesn't kawama open the door for men's dominance over women? What is the story of the sister who went to the country of flowers, the Netherlands? What she saw there, and the message she sent us? The answers to these questions will be provided in today's episode, which it is one of the most important episodes, so stay tuned. What makes the woman exchange what is better for what is worse? Rejecting the husband's authority and kawama, while accepting the authority of her manager, or even a group of ajanib, unrelated men. The matter is like a balance. Kawama is on one side, and the authority of the materialistic framework on the other. The authority of materialism was embellished for women while kawama was distorted by Islam haters and by the bad practices of many Muslims. Additionally, the scale that this woman measures with is an unbalanced scale, set by the criterion of equality, not justice, with the result that the authority of materialism outweighed the authority of kawama. In this time of sanctification for materialism, the manager is her benefactor and her way to economic empowerment, which we discussed before. The empowerment Rambo and Garel deceived her with. Indeed, the manager's authority is part of the materialistic framework that gives her the independence of the deified human, who deifies his desires as we explained in the episode. The superwoman, whereas kawama is the command of Allah, belittled by the self-deified woman. This woman belittles kawama as a result of her disdain for the family institution. While she glorifies the institutions that provide materialistic gain, she belittles the values and meanings related to faith and the hereafter, the values for which the family unit was established. While she glorifies materialistic values, keep in mind that the dominance of materialism is not only over women, but over the society and men as well. So many men have come to value the woman based on her earnings. And this, in turn, is reflected on the way she views herself. On the other hand, the woman's view of Kawama and men's guardianship by a father, brother, or husband has become distorted because of its abuse at times, and the distortion of such concepts by Islam haters at other times. So, many women accepted a system of ingrained stereotypes, emotional prejudices, and a reformatted subconscious, which she, subconsciously, uses to judge Quranic verses and hadith. From a victimhood perspective, she may have experienced injustice herself, yet her sense of injustice extends to all men, even imagining injustice from Allah Almighty Himself. If she hears, men are the protectors and maintainers of women because Allah has given the one more strength than the other and because they support them from their means. Quran translated meaning 434. She interprets it as follows. Men have the power to rule over you and to control you because they are better than you and they spend on you. So they can buy your freedom and dignity with their money. And they regard this support as a favor to you, under the slogan of Qawama and guardianship. This is exactly what happens with schizophrenia patients, who suffer from paranoia, conspiracy theorists, who hear an inner voice that interprets what they hear as a conspiracy, whereas the true meaning of the verse for a woman, who understands the command of her Lord, and believes in His wisdom and justice. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women. QTM 434. That is, they are responsible for women and concerned with their affairs. This is a command from Allah for men to take the responsibility of caring for women, protecting them, spending on them, and satisfying their needs, never exposing them to humiliation or leaving them prey to wolves. As we saw in the episode, Liberation of the Western Women. Qawama is an obligation of a man towards a woman, whether wife, sister, daughter, etc., as per the Islamic hierarchy pertaining to his relationship to the woman. This position is not an entitlement for the man, which he can give up. Rather, it is an obligation, and its abandonment is a sin. In the Islamic system, a woman never lacks a man to care for her and spare her the need to earn money, unless she, herself, doesn't want it. If a guardian does not exist, then the state will meet her needs, and the ruler is the guardian of those without guardians. Therefore, Qawama is your right from the man. Qawama means that he protects you and your honor, sacrifices himself to protect you, if necessary, and defends you if your dignity is offended in the slightest. Unlike the apathetic world of the West, true caretakers, and many who were incited by Rambos and Gurels to reject Qawama, under the slogan of economic empowerment, fell into the trap and borrowed from the Gurels. Then, when they failed to pay back, the state, which was supposed to provide for women in need, came along to imprison them or humiliate them, after it had urged them to reject Qawama. So, when the woman exchanged that what is better for what is less, she exchanged the Qawama of her family for the prison of Gurel. Men are the protectors and maintainers of women. QTM 434. These protectors and maintainers must lead the family, a responsibility, before being a right. In return for this responsibility, women owe men obedience in what are considered men's rights over them, e.g. a woman not leaving her home without her husband's permission, because Allah has given the one more than the other. Quran translated meaning 434. Allah didn't say, since He made them better than you, or since He made men better than women, but because Allah has given the one more than the other. Quran translated meaning 434. Therefore, He made men better in some rulings and tasks, and made women better in other rulings and tasks. This preference wisely takes into consideration what Allah instilled in a woman's nature, of emotional, physical, and mental abilities, which equip her for the role of raising children and for providing a warm refuge and serenity to her husband, as he does for her. This preference also takes into account the physical, mental, and psychological abilities instilled in a man's nature that makes him a better provider and decision-maker, and because they support them from their means. QTM 434. This is the second pillar, which gives the man the right and responsibility to lead the family. The man who spends, exhausts himself, protects and cares, is the one who makes decisions in the end. bears their responsibility, and suffers their consequences. Well, what if the man does not spend? What if he does not fulfill his duty? He abandoned his duty, and thus forfeited his rights, as we will explain. Kawama has two conditions. 1. Manliness and its related assets which equip a man for Kawama. 2. Spending, which means fulfilling the requirements of manliness and its assets. This is very important for both genders to know. That Kawama is not only related to a man's masculinity, or because he carries the Y chromosome, while the woman has the X chromosome, or because you have testosterone, while she has estrogen. It's absolute not what some losers, who fall short on their duties, do as they brandish the sword of Kawama and authority at women. Kawama is tied to your fulfillment of the duties of Kawama. We've discussed the embellishment of materialistic authority and the distortion of Kawama. Let's now examine the faulty scale with which they're compared. The woman who opposes Kawama because it doesn't equate between men and women, or says, why is it not allowed for a woman to discipline her husband by beating him? Or, why is it not permitted in Islam for a woman to marry four men? Note how, in all this, her premise is that equality is the absolute and correct standard. She treats this premise as an indisputable axiom and judges Islamic rulings according to this yardstick. It did not occur to her to check if her yardstick was accurate. The highest value in Islam, against which everything is judged, is obedience to Allah, glory be to Him, who made His religion based on truth and justice, and not necessarily on equality, because equality is sometimes right and just, and sometimes wrong and unjust. No sane person denies the difference between a man and a woman, in their physical, psychological, and emotional nature, and in their abilities and talents. Hence, each of them has rights and responsibilities that suit him/her. This is a clear and rational matter. Trying to assign a man's duties and rights to a woman results in disharmony with her nature. The Western woman was subjected to injustice by men, and she did not have the option of appealing to a divine revelation that clarifies rights and responsibilities fairly. Consequently, she chose equality, and ended up achieving neither rights, nor justice, nor freedom, nor equality, as we discussed in the Liberation of the Western Women episode. Thus, the Western woman moved from one injustice to another, as equating her to men is unjust to her. In Islam and its preserved revelation, Allah, who differentiated the sexes in physical, psychological, and emotional characteristics, ordained, glory be to Him, for each appropriate rulings on the basis of truth and justice. How could He not know His own creation? For He alone is the most subtle, all-aware. QTM 67:14. Islam did not equate the duty to a father with the duty to a mother. Islam favored the duty to the mother, based on truth and justice. Islam did not equate when it obligated the man to cover all household expenses for the woman and their kids, while releasing the woman from any obligation. Even if she was rich or even richer than her husband, she's not obligated to any household expenditure. Islam did not equate when it obligated men to jihad to protect women, and spared women the obligation to protect men. Islam did not equate when it permitted a woman to wear gold and silk, and made it forbidden for men. Islam did not equate when it gave the right of custody to the mother and not the father, in cases of separation. Islam, in all its rulings, fulfills truth and justice, not equality between the two genders. The worship of Allah Almighty means the criteria comes from Him, whereas the deification of man leads, ultimately, to the loss of rights, justice, freedom, and equality, especially in the matter of women, as we have shown. A believing woman submits with love, dignity, and honor to the command of her Lord, as in Allah's words, which can be translated as, "And do not covet whatever Allah has favored some of you with over others. For men is a share of what they have earned, and for women is a share of what they have earned. And ask Allah of His grace. Indeed, Allah has always been all-knowing of everything." Quran 4:32. Don't wish for what Allah has specified for men, and men should not wish for what Allah has specified for women. Rather, all should believe in the justice and wisdom of Allah. However, within the circle of what Allah has given you, seek help from Him and ask Him for His grace, and then await His generosity, which has no bounds. The Lord, who created male and female, commands only what is fair for males and females. as in Allah's words that can be translated as, thus righteous women are obedient and guard the rights of men, in their absence under Allah's protection. Quran 4:34. Among the verse's meanings, preserve the rights of the man, a woman, in return for your rights from the man, that Allah has preserved. A woman whose balance is skewed perceives qawwama as control, dominance, and an insult. However, if we set the record straight, you will know that qawwama is care, protection, reassurance, comfort, harmonious with the innate nature of the woman, and a right granted to her by her Lord. Once you understand this principle and calibrate your scale, take another look at Sharia. Now, do you see any flaws? Do you see any defects or deficiencies? No, by Allah you will never see any defect. Allah who perfected his creation has perfected his Sharia. Now, let's answer the many questions that we hear on this subject, to demonstrate how it is a Sharia of righteousness, justice, and grace indeed. Question 1. What if the couple disagrees, and each says to the other, perform your duties towards me, before I give you your rights? We say, in principle, marriage is based on affection, mercy, and intimacy, with each spouse providing what they owe and more, willingly and lovingly. It's not an accounting firm where each party holds the other accountable, like partners disputing shares. If a dispute occurs, they should resort to affection and mercy as a judge placed by Allah between them. And he placed between you affection and mercy. Quran translated meaning 30:21. Moreover, when the words, my right, and your duty are overused, it's a sign that the marriage institution is no longer performing what it was established for. All institutions can be based on justice except for marriage, which endures solely through graciousness. Question 2. Okay, good answer. But if each side insists on their opinion, and we enter into a vicious circle, you do your duty? No, you do yours. Who is the one we lean on? Who is more expected to forgive and forget? We say, it is the man, as in Allah's words that can be translated as, and due to the wives is similar to what is expected of them, according to what is reasonable, but the men have a degree over them, in responsibility and authority. Quran 2:228. Listen to the beautiful words of the master of Quran interpreters, Imam Al-Tabari. After listing the different interpretations of this verse, Al-Tabari, may Allah have mercy on him, said, the best interpretation of this verse is what Ibn Abbas said, which is that the degree Allah Almighty mentioned in this instance is that the man has to forgive his wife for not completing some of her duties and turn a blind eye. Meanwhile, he delivers all his duties towards her. Al-Tabari continued, this is the meaning that Ibn Abbas intended by saying, I do not like to take all my rights from her because Allah Almighty says, what can be translated as, but the men have a degree over them, in responsibility and authority. Quran 2:228. And the meaning of degree is rank and status. Meaning, O man, forgive and tolerate when your wife is negligent in her duties. Forgive and overlook your rights and perform your duties. Don't tell her, do your duties so that I do mine. Instead, earn this degree with Allah by forgiving, enduring, and fulfilling your duties. Then Al-Tabari said, even if this verse from Allah Almighty appears as a statement, it really means that men are being asked to treat women with graciousness so that they have a degree of merit over them. Meaning, the verse isn't a statement to the man telling him that he has a degree over the woman just because he's a male, or because he has the Y chromosome while she has the X chromosome. Rather, it tells him, you'll earn this degree if you display the qualities of tolerance and forgiveness. O mankind, indeed we have created you from male and female, and made you peoples and tribes that you may know one another. Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the most righteous of you. Indeed, Allah is knowing and acquainted. QTM 49:13. Al-Razi has a beautiful interpretation, similar to that of Al-Tabari, in one of the two interpretations for, but the men have a degree over them, in responsibility and authority. Imagine what some husbands do when they fail to carry out their duties and demand their rights from the woman under the slogan, Qawwama is mine, and I have a degree over you. Thus, they reverse the meaning of the verse. The man who attained this degree, who works to achieve this high level, earns the authority and obedience in managing the family and marriage. institutions through this degree as well. He bears the responsibilities and decision-making consequences, no matter how hard, through this degree as well. Question 3. Okay, why is there Kawama in the first place? Why aren't all family decisions made jointly? Why doesn't a woman's opinion have the same weight as a man's? You mean consultation? That is, the husband consults you on things that affect your lives, then decides? No, jointly. Well, how is that possible when you are two? It is an even number. How can a decision be reached? In all companies, institutions, schools, and universities, there must be a head, there must be a leader. When the board of directors of any institution is an even number, a person must be added so that it becomes an odd number, to provide the tie-breaking vote. Some women know this very well, but fail to understand it in the family institution. Furthermore, they reject the fact that the husband has the final say, and insist that men and women are equal in managing the family, and that all decisions must be made jointly, an impossible requirement, as it means agreement on every decision. Otherwise, she considers it oppression, patriarchy, and a husband's abuse of Kawama. As a result, the family collapses, or everybody becomes miserable over trivial things, and every decision becomes an argument. Indeed, many couples separated or divorced right before the wedding as a result of such disagreements. Again, this is a consequence of devaluing the family institution, while esteeming the institutions, which provide material gain. She devalues the family because she did not understand, like many men as well, the concept of family in Islam. They marry solely to satisfy sexual instincts, motherhood, and fatherhood instincts, and to follow a social norm. People get married, so I'm married. While in Islam, the family is the cornerstone for establishing the command of Allah, developing civilization on earth, and fortifying the nation against its enemies. Therefore, it is the most important institution. So, we say to the wife, discuss and express your view. As in the hadith of Al-Bukhari and Muslim, the wives of the Prophet, peace be upon him, used to voice their objections, i.e. opposed his views, on some worldly matters. But in the end, a woman obeys her husband's decision even if it goes against her opinion, unless his decision is a sin. Question 4. But some men abuse the concept of Kawama or authority over women. True, but as we said in the episode, Islam and beating women, the misapplication is the fault of the offender rather than a fault in the principle of Kawama or the Sharia that decreed it. Thus, a husband may be legally prohibited from abusing his authority. He may even be deprived, in the proper Islamic judiciary, from his Kawama and authority by rule of Sharia, if he forfeits his right to it. Kawama remains a matter of righteousness and justice, with the emphasis that families should keep their affairs private and not rush to court before exhausting other possible solutions. Kawama and authority are vehicles for leading the family. If the driver of a vehicle that you're riding in can't drive and causes an accident which harms you, you will not blame the principle of using transportation, but you will say, he is a bad driver. Question 5. You might say, I spend on the household too, so do I have a right to Kawama? We answer, by spending on your household, you gave up your right to support, a compromise and graciousness on your part, but it does not transfer Kawama to you. Kawama is an established right for men who spend. If a woman gives up her right or contributes to the household expenses, she will be rewarded, but this is unrelated to Kawama. And do not covet whatever Allah has favored some of you with over others. Quran translated meaning 432. Question 6. You might say, my expenditure is not an act of kindness, but because my husband is negligent and doesn't spend enough on our household. We say, Kawama has 2 conditions in the Quran, since Allah has made some of them excel the others, and because of the wealth they have spent. QTM 434. If the husband refuses to spend on his household when he is able to do so, then he's failed to meet the requirement and lost the justification for Kawama, and his Kawama becomes dependent on the woman's consent and approval. Really? We assumed that he'd be committing a sin but retaining Kawama. No, and this isn't a matter of different opinions among scholars, but of consensus. Well, what does a woman do in such situations? She has options. She can take from his money without his permission, a fair amount sufficient for her and her children, or she may resort to the Islamic judiciary to impose support payments on the husband against his will. She can also spend from her own money, and her expenditure is considered a loan to her husband, or she can take out a loan through a judge's order and he will be responsible for repayment. Moreover, she can stay legally married to her husband while refusing to sleep with him, or leave his house and move to her family's house, so that kawama over her is transferred to her father or brother. Thus, she moves from one kawama to another, and never lack for a protector to safeguard her. Finally, she may ask for a separation from her husband. Ayad, why are you turning this into a fiqh lesson? No, all of this is to highlight a very important concept. If a man abdicates the responsibilities of kawama, then he may forfeit its rights. Kawama is not given to him just because he is a male, and the woman will not be left to his mercy and told, endure his injustice in this world, and you will be rewarded in the next. Instead, Islam is fair to her in this world and in the hereafter. What about husbands who prioritize their smoking expenses over spending on their wives and children? Kawama is a protection for the wife from what harms her. So how about when the husband is the one who harms her by exposing her to secondhand smoke and its related diseases? How about families where, when benefactors offer help, the wife, rightly so, says, by Allah, don't give the money to my husband, as he will use it to buy cigarettes and neglect our family needs. Allah says, what can be translated as, and do not give the weak-minded your property, which Allah has made a means of sustenance for you. Quran 4:5. While this verse is primarily for men, telling them not to give money to fools, it also applies to some men in our society, who, even with all this, still think that masculinity is enough for kawama. Question 7. You might say, my husband isn't fulfilling my financial needs, or any other needs. He treats me badly, and I cannot go to my family, or to court, or they have let me down and I have to live with him, as my family is poor or unwilling to take me in. In this case, we say, remember that it wasn't Sharia or kawama which wronged you. It was your husband, family, the Sharia abandoning society, the judge, or the state. As for Sharia, it is your sanctuary, not your opponent, sister. Rather, the injustice you endured should prompt you to champion the Sharia that champions you and forbids injustice toward you and others. Sharia is your sanctuary, not your opponent. Question 8. What expenditure are we talking about? It is not an expenditure that burdens the husband. Rather, let a man of wealth spend from his wealth, and he whose provision is restricted, let him spend from what Allah has given him. Quran translated meaning 65:7. He is not required to provide luxuries or compete in material possessions in order to retain his kawama. Rather, Islam fights the culture of materialistic consumption, which burdens families and threatens their stability. Question 9. Okay, what if the husband is unable to provide for the family? Given the economic situation in the Muslim world, the rise in unemployment and business bankruptcies, this issue is debatable between scholars. But we urge the woman to be patient during her husband's hardship, and remember Allah's words, that can be translated as, and do not forget graciousness between you. Quran 2:237. But, to keep things in perspective, both parties have to remember that the wife's patience is a favor, not an obligation. So, the husband must appreciate her loyalty and charity, consider himself indebted to her, and become more tolerant of her mistakes. And when she sees that her kindness is appreciated, she gives it willingly and generously. A husband's financial distress causes psychological distress for the wife, whose innate nature is to rely on the support of others. A woman has a psychological need to be supported, even if she is rich, and the husband must understand this. So, if he finds her distressed and anxious, as he struggles financially, he must know that she's suffering as he is, and become more tolerant with her. Similarly, we tell her, among the reasons for his financial distress are the corruption and theft of Muslim wealth. So be supportive of your husband. Breaking up families will only degrade and humiliate Muslims more and hand more control over to the criminals who made your lives harder. Be merciful on the earth, and you will be shown mercy from who is above the heavens. At-Tirmidhi. In such cases, if a woman graciously helps her husband, she will be rewarded greatly. In the hadith narrated by al-Bukhari, Zainab, the wife of Abdullah ibn Masud, sent to Ask the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Is it permissible for me to spend zakat, charity, on my husband and the orphans under my protection? Her husband was not able to support her. Our Prophet, peace be upon him, said, yes, and she will receive a double reward, for that one for helping relatives, and the other for the charity. Al-Bukhari, a double reward for giving charity. To her husband? Charity? Yes, it is considered charity, because she is not obliged to spend on her husband, and her reward is doubled. Question 10. But what you say, even if restricted by all these rules, may embolden some women. Okay, what do you really want? Should we not teach people their rights and responsibilities according to Sharia? Is it better to keep them ignorant? She does not know her rights, and even if she knows them and demands them, her husband will still deny her her rights. Therefore, it is better for her not to know them. No, there's no greater good than for people, men and women, to know the greatness of Allah's Sharia so that their hearts are content with Allah's justice and wisdom. This is a higher priority than the protection of the family at the expense of mistrust in Allah and His Sharia, which the woman will feed her children. When the rule of Sharia is imposed on all, there will be justice for all, and only those with diseased hearts and enslaving desires will object. Indeed, whenever people abandon Allah's commands, Allah will make them need it. Moreover, if each party observes only what pleases them in Sharia and get annoyed when asked to fulfill their duties, they become like hypocritical rulers who subjugate people in the name of Sharia while they turn away from it. And when they are called to Allah and His Messenger to judge between them, at once a party of them turns aside in refusal. But if the right is theirs, they come to him in prompt obedience. QTM 24:48-49. These hypocrite rulers were inflicted upon Muslims only after selectivity in dealing with their Lord's commands became prevalent among Muslims. Question 11. What if the wife has a doctorate, while her husband doesn't even have a university degree? Why does Qawwama remain his? First of all, dear viewers, higher education is not a measure for useful education or for sound thinking. Even assuming that some women have more Islamic knowledge and wisdom than their husbands, Islam, in the end, provides rules which apply to humanity in general. Now, if some men are clearly deficient in these abilities, e.g. psychological issues that truly hinder their ability to make sound decisions, which the wife tried to conceal, but he does not respond, as this may affect her life, she can, in this case, ask the seniors from his family and hers to intervene, or seek the intervention of the Islamic court. Qawwama remains his right, as long as his illness or poor reasoning skills don't impact his standing as a sane, responsible person. Thus, the principle remains as is. Qawwama is for men in general, and exceptional cases do not discredit it. We cannot say, because there are exceptional cases, the Sharia ruling which gives Qawwama to men is discredited. Question 12. If the man is fulfilling his duties as father or husband and doesn't neglect the rights of the woman, but he is excessively controlling and prevents the woman from leaving the house without providing a reason or allowing any discussion, is not this abuse that allows her to disobey him? We say, dear viewers, discussing every decision with the husband and arguing with him excessively are factors that disturb the happiness of Muslim families. Yes, the husband has the right to prevent his wife from leaving the house without providing a reason, and his wife should obey him unless that prevents her from acquiring essential required Islamic knowledge or visiting her family a minimum number of times or receiving medical care, etc. Otherwise, he is not required to explain and convince her every time. But if the husband goes to excess, then the problem is not in Qawwama, as such problems usually arise when the spousal affection is weak. And of his signs is that he created for you from yourselves mates that you may find tranquility in them, and he placed between you affection and mercy. QTM 30:21. If the affection is weak, he may forbid his wife from what she likes, as an expression of his dissatisfaction. Your role here, gracious sister, is to try to appease your husband, and to realize that Qawwama in its entirety is indispensable to you. If some of its elements oppose your legitimate desires, you can try to attain these desires in a good way, but abandoning Qawwama as a whole is not an option. In disputes among men, you may be angry, upset or resentful, shouting or frowning at your opponent, awaiting his reaction, so that you can get angrier and angrier. But then, he delivers a knockout punch. What was the knockout punch? His words, "I'm sorry if I offended you, I meant only good." Then he calmly withdraws and leaves you to yourself. This is an extremely powerful form of weakness. He transforms you, in your own view, from the oppressed to the oppressor, from a man ready to fight to a man who apologizes to appease. This is among men. Similarly, the wise woman knows that her strength lies in her weakness. She holds her husband's hand and displays her affection, which calms his anger and soothes his pride. She wins him over with her weakness, affection, and femininity. In contrast, if he returns home from the pressures of life and work, his source of expenditure on his household, and is greeted by a woman opponent who is looking for a fight or argument about anything, the affection will be replaced by grudges. This is the story of Kawama. When the full picture is displayed, the woman better understands the words of her prophet, "Peace and blessings be upon him, by the one in whose hand is the soul of Muhammad." No woman can fulfill her duty towards Allah until she fulfills her duty towards her husband. Ahmad and Ibn Majah. A man who protects her, shelters her, meets her needs, and preserves her dignity deserves this from her. In truth, she should instinctively and naturally seek his Kawama. When you place Sharia in its proper context, many of those repelled by it will be reassured, and their doubts become a source of pride. The Muslim woman then realizes that she was born with a silver spoon in her mouth, which she took for granted, because she did not see the complete miserable story of women who lost the blessing of Kawama. As we discussed in the liberation of Western women, Kawama, as decreed by Allah, is a dream for the non-Muslim Western and Eastern woman, who often splits household expenses with her husband or boyfriend, and may even be kicked out of the house for not spending. Finally, we were contacted by a Muslim girl who went to the Netherlands, the country of flowers, for her postgraduate studies. Doubts about Islam accumulated in her mind, so she wrote to the wife of a friend of mine telling her that she lost her conviction in Islam and lost her love for Allah. Months passed. Then a few days ago she sent us a long letter, in which she expressed her return to Allah after watching The Journey of Certainty, The Women in Depth, and Fiqh al-Nafs series by my brother Dr. Abd al-Rahman Thakir. The sister says in her letter, "I love Allah because He created me Muslim and gave me a family that loves me, a father, a mother, and brothers who worry about me and care about the smallest details in my life. Dr. Ayad, I've seen every word of your women's series with my own eyes. In my last 4 months in the Netherlands, I lived in a dormitory with European girls. I was shocked when I saw the dark side of their lives. Only then did I realize the value of the chastity and purity of Muslim women, and the blessing of having a family, father, brother, and supporting relative who think of me even when I am continents away, while the European woman lives next to her father, yet he doesn't even look at her or ask about her. By Allah, I am very sad about the situation of European women, and I pity them. I had a Dutch friend who told me that she was in a hurry to find work because her family was annoyed about her presence in their house. Another German girl had a fight with her boyfriend, so he kicked her out of his house. After being a feminist to the core, I am now appreciative of the blessing of living with a family that preserves my dignity and honor, a family which feels responsibility towards me." Dear viewers, aside from the mistake of leaving a girl on her own in a European country, the point is that she recognized the value of Kawama through its absence in the country of flowers. This sister, previously hostile towards Sharia, concluded by saying, "What do I do for Allah to forgive my disrespect towards Him when I objected to His rulings? I asked for His forgiveness, glory be to Him, and I think that He loves me because He guided me after I went astray, but advised me on what I can do to make Him pleased with me." We say to this honorable sister, Allah says, what can be translated as, "Say, O my servants who have transgressed against themselves, do not despair of the mercy of Allah. Indeed, Allah forgives all sins. Indeed it is He who is the forgiving, the merciful." Quran 39:53. We ask Allah to make the sharing of her story and its impact a reason for His pleasure with her. O Allah, Make belief beloved to us and adorn our hearts with it. Make us hate disbelief, deviance, and rebellion, and place us among the rightly guided. May the peace and mercy of Allah be upon you.